Good afternoon and welcome to Jazz Vespers on this Palm Sunday, where the trees are glistening with ice like little crystals. It's really amazing and beautiful. Today, before us, we have Wayne, who is going to be performing all of our music, and he's taking us on a longing and reflective journey of Holy Week in a jazz pianist version. We have Marjorie today up in the balcony who has provided our snacks. Nathan behind me over there during our AV. And I am Martel. Our first poem, and a big shout out to Joe Doolittle, who is trapped outside of the city somewhere, trying to get home, but stuck because of the snow. Joe, we love you and miss you, and you owe me one. Our first poem is by G.K. Chesterton. It's called The Donkey. When fishes flew and forests walked, and figs grew upon thorn, some moment when the moon was blood, then surely I was born. With monstrous head and sickening cry and ears like errant wings, the devil's walking parody of all four-footed things. The tattered outlaw of the earth, of ancient crooked will, starve, scourge, deride me, I am dumb, I keep my secret still. Fools, for I also had my hour, one far fierce hour and sweet. There was a shout about my ears, and palms before my feet. Our first song was actually Long Ago and Far Away, the Kern Gershwin piece from 1944. And our next is a Miles Davis piece, Milestones.
This is actually the John Lewis version, but he was thinking of Miles when he did it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good.
Our next song is it, we're doing Come Sunday, Duke Ellington?
Yes.
Okay, yes. It is actually written as a prayer, and the words are really beautiful. Lord, dear Lord above, God Almighty, God of love, please look down and see my people through. I believe that God put sun and moon up in the sky. I don't mind the gray skies, 'cause they're just clouds passing by. Heaven is a goodness time, brighter light on high. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and have a brighter by and by. Dear Lord, Lord above, God Almighty, God of love, please look down and see my people through. In the scriptures, we have psalms of lament, and many of them, a goodly portion of the psalms, of the 150 psalms, some 40-ish are of lament, 50-ish are of lament. And most of them, all of them except one, end with praising God, even through the sorrow, even through the pain. The one, Psalm 88, doesn't. It's the only one that ends in darkness. Lament comes to us in many different ways. We are going to hear a song, Lament, shortly, and I want to read a prayer of lament, actually a poem, a sonnet of lament by Oscar Wilde. And it's really intriguing how he laments over missing certain aspects of Holy Week because he is focusing on a different aspect of life. I wandered in Scoglietto's green retreat. The oranges on each o'erhanging spray burned as bright lamps of gold to shame the day. Some startled birds with fluttering wings and fleet made snow of all the blossoms at my feet. Like silver moon and pale narcissus lay, and a curved wave that streaked the sapphire bay. Laughed I, the sun, and life seemed very sweet. Outside, the young boy priest passed, seeing clear. Jesus, the Son of Mary, has been slain. O come and fill his scepter with flowers. Ah, God, oh God, those dear Hellenic hours had drowned all memory of thy bitter pain, the cross, the crown, the soldiers, and the spear. Lament. The next song is Blackberry Winter. Are you familiar with the term? No. So you've heard of Indian summer in the autumn, when it's unseasonably warm, and you've heard of January thaw in January, when it's unseasonably warm, and we've had that. So Blackberry Winter is just the opposite. It's a time in late spring when it's unseasonably cold. It's when snow falls late in the season after the blackberries have already started to bloom. It can also be known as redbud winter, and as a child, I remember one of my aunts referring to it as whippoorwill winter. And it's that when the trees are in bloom and there's a freeze, unseasonably, which destroys crops and destroys beauty. In the Holy Week that is upon us, what is seemingly bad that destroys what we think is as good and beauty actually is ironically what saves us. Our next song is Blackberry Winter.
You said it so well. Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Here we go.
The poet Rilke, brilliant mind, troubled soul, writes some of the most beautiful poetry of the last century. And I had several professors who claimed that he was their favorite. He was their favorite poet. He writes about, one of his poems is about the Last Supper, which I'm going to share with you. It's about the invitation that was offered to those around the table and that is offered to you and I. Every time we get together for communion in church, it's at the invitation of Jesus to break bread and share the cup. And in so, do this in memory. Do this as a reenactment that's actually more than that. It is that we are present, that we partake in the original supper by the words that are spoken. And that invitation, that amnesis, is troublesome. And so that is why Rilke writes about this invitation in a confused and troublesome manner. They are assembled, astonished and disturbed around him, who, like a sage, resolved his fate, and now leaves those to whom he most belonged, leaving and passing by them like a stranger. The loneliness of old comes over him, which helped him mature for his deepest act. Now will he once again walk through the olive grove, and those who love him still will flee before his sight. To this Last Supper he summoned them, and, like a shot that scatters birds from trees, their hands draw back from reaching for the loaves upon his word. They fly across to him. They flutter, frightened, round the supper table, searching for an escape. But he is present everywhere, like an all-pervading twilight hour. Here they are gathered, wondering and deranged, round him who wisely doth himself enclose, and who now takes himself away, estranged, from those who owned him once, and past them flows. He feels the ancient loneliness today that taught him all his deepest acts of love. Now in the olive grove he soon will rove, and these who love him will all flee away. To the Last Supper table he hath led, as birds are frightened from a garden bed by shots. So he their hands forth from the bread, doth frightened by his word, to him they flee. Then flutter round the table in their fright, and seek a passage from the hall, but he is everywhere, like the dusk of fall of night. An invitation. Our next song is But Beautiful. It was first performed by Bing Crosby and Dorothy Lamour in The Road to Rio, 1947. But Frank Sinatra made it a hit the following year in 48. My first recollection of this song is actually Nat King Cole from his 1958 album. I loved it. I loved it. So this But Beautiful thing is really about the balance, so the irony of funny and sad and quiet and mad and good things and bad, and how it's all in balance, and how things are all in balance, and with love comes agony, and with love comes longing, and with love comes a feeling of emptiness, and it really does hang in this balance. George Herbert wrote a very long poem called, I think it's The Deacon Slant and something or other, but I'm going to read the first part called The Agony. Philosophers have measured mountains, fathomed the depths of the sea of states and kings, walked with a staff to heaven and traced fountains. But there are two vast, spacious things to which to measure it does more to behoove. Yet few there are that sound them, sin and love. Whoever would know sin, let him repair unto Mount Olivet. There he shall see a man so wrung with pain that all his hair, his skin, his garments bloody be. Sin is that press and vice which forces pain to hunt his cruel food through every vein. Whoever does not know love, let him assay and taste that juice, which on the cross a pike did set again a broach. And let him say, if ever he did taste the like, love is the liquor sweet and most divine, to which my God feels as blood, but I as wine. But beautiful.
you.
Before you all came, I was talking and I shared that I really don't want to be here right now. I want to be in New Hampshire making maple syrup. I want to be sugaring. And I love this time of year in the White Mountains. It is cold and it is snowy, and yet the trees are giving up their sap. They are producing. Not a leaf, not a bud, no sign of life, but still these trees pour out their gifts. I follow a website by a woman named Emily Paulus Gibson. It's called Barnstorming, and she has a farm up in Washington State. But her farm and my farm are actually very similar in the fact that they're really rocky. And when I say really rocky, I mean really rocky. She wrote a Lenten poem once called A Fitting Silence. And although the last song that we're going to hear today is called Turn Out the Stars, I applied it to Turn Out the Stones because that speaks to me. These cold, hard things that promise life underneath, that when you start turning them over, you see the first green things of spring, and you see the first movement of life that have been protected from the ice and the snow. She also quotes in this poem Wendell Berry, who wrote a poem called The Stones. I owned a slope full of stones, like buried pianos they lay in the ground. What bond I have made with the earth, having warned myself against it, it is a fatal singing I have carried with me out of that day. The stones have given me music that figures for me their holes in the earth and their long lying in the dark. They have taught me the weariness that loves the ground, and I must prepare a fitting silence. What does it take to move a stone? When it is an effort to till the untillable, creating a place where a simple seed can drop, be covered and sprout and thrive. It takes muscle and sweat and blisters and tears. What does it take to move a stone? When it is a day when no one will speak out of fear, the silent will be moved to cry out the truth, heard and known and not forgotten. What does it take to move a stone? When it is a day when all had given up, gone behind locked doors in grief, and two came to tend the dead, but there was no dead to tend, only a gaping hole left, only an empty tomb, only a weary, weeping silence broken by love, calling our name, and we turn to greet him as if hearing it for the very first time.
And this is Turn Out the Stars by Bill Evans.
Thank you for joining us this Palm Sunday. Wayne's perspective, Holy Week, through the eyes of a jazz pianist has been reflective and full of longing and beauty. So thank you very much, Wayne.
You're welcome.
For those who wish to continue supporting Jazz Vespers, there is a box out back out front that you can drop any donations you'd like. There are palms on the back table for anyone who would like some palms from Palm Sunday to bring home. We have lots of food over there. Thank you, Marjorie, for that. Thank you, Nathan, on audiovisual, and see you next week. I am Martel.